recording.
Okay, very good. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the November 16th Finance Committee meeting of the State Bar. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. And could I get our committee coordinator, Tini Chan, to call the roll of the Finance Committee, please?
Yes. Buenaventura?
Present.
Good. Not present.
I thought Sarah joined. Can somebody check to see if she's in the attendee pool? She may have needed a different Zoom link. If Alfredo or Luisa can try to assist her, that would be great. Sorry, Tinny, go ahead.
Okay. Huser?
Present.
Sowell?
Present.
Tony?
Present.
Trejo?
I'm present.
We have a quorum.
Very good. Next on the agenda is the call for public comment. Just want to make note that the State Bar staff will try to call members of the public in order. If you're participating by Zoom, I'll ask you to use the raise your hand function that appears on your screen. If you are participating by phone, if you would use press the *9 key and you'll be recognized. And due to time constrictions, we normally try to have members of the public speak for 3 minutes. And we generally try to give you a notification as to when sort of 30 seconds is left in your public testimony. Tinny, we have anybody that has signed up? I don't know if we've had anybody that signed up in advance. Have anybody that might be waiting either on Zoom or calling in?
No, it doesn't look like there are any members of the public who have their hands raised to speak.
Okay, very good. And so with that, I think the next item on the agenda is the chair's report. And I know we're getting a little bit of a late start, so I really don't have much here. And so I think we'll just sort of forgo anything from a chair's report standpoint. Welcome, board member Good. Good to see you. I think the next item on the agenda is the minutes. And we need approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections or modifications to the minutes that any member of the Finance Committee would like to make note of at this time? Seeing none. No hands for corrections or modifications to the minutes. Can I get a motion for approval of the minutes, please?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, so moved by Mr. Tony, a second by Mr. Trejo. Ms. Chan, would you call the roll on the minutes, please?
Yeah. Buenaventura?
Aye.
Good.
Aye.
Huser?
Abstain since I was not at the meeting.
Tony?
Aye.
Trejo?
Aye.
Sowell?
Aye.
5 ayes, 0 nays. Minutes are adopted.
Very good. I'm gonna keep trying to buzz through here. The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. And I believe that we had the item that was set for consent. There's been a request to have it pulled from consent. Is that correct?
Yes.
Very good. And so can we move to have the presentation on that item?
It's Steve Moat here.
Yes, I believe. Let me.
He's being promoted currently.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Steve.
Nice to see you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have a PowerPoint that I hope you can all see now. Yes. Yes. Great. So I just wanted to present this to you because I wanted to explain sort of where we are in the process of the schedule of charges and deadlines. And that's because it's got somewhat of a complex history. In prior years, we have presented to the board an incomplete but still somewhat lengthy schedule of charges and deadlines for approval each year. And the schedule contained only a subset of fees that the state bar charges. Some fees were set in statute, some by rule, others were approved by the board or set by the board, and still other fees didn't really need board approval, but were in there or not. This year, the schedule includes additional fees that do not require board approval. We are attempting to bring together all fees charged by the state bar to facilitate both internal and external transparency. So this year, we are asking that you approve the schedule as a whole one final time, and that going forward, we will bring to you, particularly if amendments to 1.22 are adopted after being sent out for public comment, we will bring to you only those fees for which we are seeking changes, and we would then update the schedule based on the action taken by the board, rather than having the board review and approve the schedule in its entirety. As part of that, I do want to note for you that all general fund and admissions fees increases that you have approved previously are included in the proposed schedule that you have before you, except those fees that require approval of the Supreme Court, as those have not yet been implemented. With that, I'm available to answer any questions, but I don't have anything further.
Questions on the fee schedule from members of the Finance Committee? Very good. Thanks for taking that down, Steve, because I couldn't see hands. Mr. Tony, please.
You know, my basic recommendation for all fees, first, my basic observation when fees have been brought before the board is that many of them had not, before being brought to the board, been reviewed or increased from anything from 5 to 10 years or longer. So, and that leads to, and the fees are supposed to cover the costs of administering the programs for which they're being collected. And it's very easy to see how, if we wait for 5 or 10 years to review, that it's impossible, and keep them stagnant, how with the cost of living and the cost of doing business, how we have a shortfall, and then we're put in this very uncomfortable position of having to, or feeling like we have to institute very drastic increases that provide sticker shock. So that's one observation. So I think that's part of why I'm glad we are getting these now, okay? Part of my recommendation has always been, for every set that has come before us, I make the same recommendation. One is that we should review them every 2 to 3 years, okay? Let's say every 3 years, because there's a lot of staff time. But my recommendation has always been, and I've gotten, some of the fees we've agreed, that we should have a COLA adjustment in the years we don't look at them. And, just to keep pace with inflation and with the rising costs. So I guess my I don't know that we have to absolutely adopt it as policy, but I would like the understanding that we have that 2 things happen going forward. That there's a commitment that at least once every 3 years, we do review everything. I don't care if it's in batches, I don't care if it's all together, but that in one way or the other, all fees are reviewed on a regular schedule. And that in between time, my strong recommendation is that they have an automatic adjuster, which is equivalent, to, whatever you want to call it, inflation, COLA, consumer price index. They're basically the same thing, but people are familiar with that. that those are automatic in between times. So that's my feedback.
Very good, Mr.
Wanted to say- Oh, I was just gonna follow up, Arnie. One of the things, Mark, that Steve and I were trying to work on in the rule amendment is implementing that policy regarding the application of the CPI adjustment to the fees automatically into the rule proposal. We were working kind of a little bit at the last minute. It was difficult to get it into the language of the rule, but your point has been taken. I know in finance, they are working on codifying the actions the committee and the board have already taken regarding the CPI adjustment. That will be finance policy. Also, policy will be that all of the fees be reviewed every 3 years. And so we've heard the message. Ultimately, I think we'll come back with another rule amendment that normalizes that process such that you don't have to approve the CPI adjusted fees every year as well. But I just wanted to assure you that we've gotten the message, and really kind of the first step is getting all the fees in one place, believe it or not.
Other questions on the fee schedule? You know, I'm not sure if this is pertinent to this particular item, or it may be pertinent to the item that's going to come a little bit later on our agenda, having to do with the budget assumptions. But two things. I do know that we have a report to the legislature that's due in April, and obviously we'll have some additional discussions of fees before this committee as we prepare that report. But one of the things that sort of struck me as I looked at the fee schedule is some of the opt-out provisions in the in our main sort of licensing fee, and I had a question as to whether or not those opt-out provisions, particularly the provision around the legal assistance fund, is that something that's in statute that allows for that opt-out, or is that something that we have some administrative control over?
That's in statute.
Okay, so that is something else that I think I would, as we continue down this process, like to have some additional discussion on as it relates to access to justice, et cetera. So, but I don't have any substantive questions additional substantive questions at this time. Any other members of the committee? Very good. Can I get a motion to send this item out for public comment?
So moved.
Second.
Was it moved by Ms. Good, second by Board Member Buenaventura? Did I get that right?
Yes.
You want to know? I probably should have put is there a resolution with this? I probably should have had the resolution up. Sorry about that. If Board Member Good and Board Member Buenaventura are still good with no pun intended, still good with their motions. At the end of the day, this is just about sending this out for public comment.
I'm good.
Okay, very good. All right.
If I may, it's actually adopting the schedule as set forth in the appendix and sending out for public comment the rule as set forth in the subsequent appendix, but it's doing both of those things. I just want to avoid confusion.
Very good. Okay to move forward?
Yes.
All righty. Ms. Chan, will you please call the roll?
Buenaventura,
Aye.
Good,
Aye.
Huser,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Trejo,
Aye.
Sowell.
Aye.
6 ayes, 0 nays. The motion passes.
All righty. Our next order of business is approval of Q3 2023 financial statements in the investment report. And I think Justin and Coco are supposed to present. Is it this one? Very good.
Sorry, I just joined. I don't know if you introduced me yet.
No, we're just waiting for you.
Okay, great.
Justin, and Coco, you're good to go on approval of the presentation on the quarter 3 2023 financial statements.
Okay, great. I will share my screen. I have a short presentation on the third quarter financial statements, and then Coco will give a presentation on the investment report. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. I will now present some highlights on the revenue. General fund revenue was slightly higher than budgeted revenue of 87 million. Part of the increase in revenue is due to higher than anticipated mandatory fees. These are our main licensing fees for active and inactive attorneys. Another increase, which was largely made up of the Client Trust Account Protection Program compliance fees. This is a new fee in 2023. And those two combined for about 1.1 million more than budgeted revenue. The other cause for increase in revenue is due to the timing of the pass-through revenue to the Affinity insurance programs. We pass through revenue to CalBar Affinity and the California Lawyers Association, and we didn't receive that revenue in the third quarter, so we couldn't pass it through, but we have since passed it through, and so it will be resolved by year end. The Equal Access Fund had less revenue compared to budget due to the timing of the recognition of the revenue. There is no cause for concern here. This is just a timing issue, and it will also resolve in the fourth quarter. The Legal Services Trust Fund, if I were to draw your attention to anything on the revenue chart, it would be the Legal Services Trust Fund. This is made up of the IOLTA revenue. The top 10 banks, which contribute 90% of the IOLTA revenue, we anticipated them having an average daily balance of 1.7 billion. In actuality, it's about 4.8 billion, an increase of 182%. We also anticipated that the interest rate that they would be earning would be 1.87%, and the actual interest rate as of September was 3.5%, an 87% increase. You might remember we amended the budget from 38 million to 106 million in July for this, and as you can see, that wasn't enough. We've received 117 million through quarter 3, which is a good problem to have. We will monitor this as it goes, as we start planning the 2024 budget. The admissions fund hasn't really changed quarter to quarter. The increase in revenue is due to more applicants taking the exam in February and July. The February exam surpassed budgeted revenue by 1 million, and July exam exceeded budgeted revenue by 900,000. The other small variance is due to moral character processing fees, which makes sense with the increase in applicants. Finally, for revenue, the other funds is higher due to a Cypress donation. I had to research what Cypress meant, and Cypress comes from the French term meaning as near as possible. Cypress awards are designated when there are residual funds to class action lawsuits or other court cases, where they cannot be distributed to the class members or beneficiaries for a variety of reasons, so they can designate something else. And the Cypress were designated to the State Bar's Justice Gap Fund this year, and so that's why we have an increase in revenue there. Moving on to expenses, the general fund expenses are slightly higher due to building operations equipment of the elevator and generator, which is offset by the timing of some professional services payments for the state auditor for our audit earlier this year. The grants fund is on budget. The Equal Access Fund and Legal Services Trust Fund are above budget, and this is due to timing of receipts or timing of the payments of the grants. And so this is just another timing issue and will resolve itself by the end of the fourth quarter. The admissions fund is 600,000 under budget. And part of this is due to delays in proctor invoices for the July exam and some other professional services spending. We anticipate that this will resolve itself by year end and they will be on budget. And then finally, the Client Security Fund is slightly under budget due to less payouts than anticipated. The number of payouts did increase significantly in the latter part of the year in the Client Security Fund, but this was offset by an increase in reimbursements over what was budgeted. So those are the highlights for the revenue and expenses. Are there any questions at this time?
Any questions from board members about the Q3 financial statements?
Okay, then I will turn it over to our controller, Coco, to give a presentation on the investment report.
Thank you, Justin. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. Today I will be presenting on the Q3 2023 investment report. So first of all, the state bar continue to invest following the state of California's investment policy. We only invest on the highly secure investment, mainly on the government bonds and notes, commercial paper, and money market funds. As of Q3 23, the market value of the state bar's investment portfolio has increased it to $222.5 million. In September 2023, we have just made a new purchase for $97 million on short-term government notes. The increase of market value in 23 was mainly due to the significant new purchases made in 23 on the government notes. For all the government notes holding as of Q3, they were all having the yield at purchase range from 4.6% to 5.4%. And for the money market fund holding as of Q3, we were having the average 5.2%. For the overall portfolio as of Q3, we were having the quarterly rate of return of 4.19%, an increase from the prior quarter, and it also much higher than the same quarter in 2022, which was only around 2%. And as of Q3, the investment earning for the state bar were favorable at a $3.4 million gain. And as mentioned, it was mainly due to the larger investment portfolio and the higher rate of return. With that, I would like to ask you if there are any questions.
Any questions from Finance Committee members on the investment side of the Q3 2023 financial statements? Seeing none. Tina, can we have the resolution? And may I have a motion on the resolution, please?
So moved.
I'll second.
This is board member Hughes, that was you that moved it, and Mr.
Yeah.
with the second.
Trejo, trustee Trejo.
Trejo with the second. Will you call the roll, Ms. Chen, please?
Buenaventura, Good,
Aye.
Huser,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Trejo,
Aye.
Sewell.
I'm an aye.
5 ayes, 0 nays. The motion passes.
Very good. The next item on our agenda is a request for 2024 spending authority, as well as the formal and the 2024 a discussion of the 2024 budget assumptions. And I think, Justin, that's back to you and also to Coco again for a presentation, correct?
That is correct. Coco will talk about the spending authority, and I will chime in about the budget assumptions.
You got it.
Hi, everyone. I will start with the 2024 spending authority. Similar to a prior year, as the state bar budget will be adopted in late January or February 2024. State bar staff need spending authority for the period from January 1st to the final budget adoption day, but no later than February 28th, which is the day that state bar needs to file its final budget with the state legislature. So we are requesting the committee to approve the total spending of $150 million to spend in the first 2 months of 2024. Out of this $115 million, $90 million will be for grant disbursement, anticipated to be paid in the first 2 months in 2024. A few grants like the homeless prevention, CAL HSA, and care court grants, they have the annual disbursement schedule, and those grant payments are scheduled to be made in either January or February. And the spending authority was like calculated or estimated using the prior year average monthly expenditure plus any expenditure already known or previously approved by the board. Before I turn it over to Justin, I would like to ask if there are any questions about the spending authority at this point.
No, I don't see any hands on questions for on the spending authority. This is a pretty pro forma activity for the bar every year.
Okay, then I will turn it over to Justin to talk about the budget update and the preliminary budget assumption. Thank you.
Thanks, Coco. We are looking to engage the Finance Committee in a discussion to look at the underlying budget assumptions. As you can tell from the agenda item, we sent the legislature a 2020 forecast back in August, and that was our best projection at the time. One of the changes that was included in that forecast was the vacancy rate to reflect our actual vacancy rate. And so we are looking for direction. Should our 2024 budget align as closely as possible to that number? Or should it include costs that were maybe not anticipated at that time? An example of those costs that weren't anticipated at that time were healthcare costs went up between 12 and 17%, and we didn't know that at the time. And there's been other increases regarding insurance due to the various lawsuits that the bar is facing that we did not anticipate at that time. So now some of these increased costs may be offset by increased revenue. We, as Coco mentioned previously, our investments are doing fairly well, and so there might be more investment income next year. There may be other reduction in expenses we could kind of look at to try and offset to come in as close to that number that we sent the legislature, which, if you remember, was about a deficit of about $17 million. So we're just looking for feedback from the Finance Committee as to what kind of major budget assumptions and where we should come in at. And I don't know if Leah has something to add to this.
Yeah, I think as is referenced in the item and Justin mentioned, we have to be thinking both about the budget that the board is going to adopt and the April reports that are due to the legislature, which will serve as the basis for their consideration of a fee increase. And so I think it's really critical this year what that 2024 budget looks like. And those of you that have spent any time in conversation with our legislative stakeholders know that sometimes there's a concern about us changing our numbers too often. And so I think as we're working as a staff team to bring forward the budget, wanted to have some kind of high level policy discussion with the committee about how closely to try to hew to what we provided before. Understanding that the Finance Committee will have a couple more bites at this, obviously, before we bring to the board anything that looks like a final budget. So I saw Sarah had her hand up. Sorry if I interrupted you.
Board Member Good, please.
I was going to ask the executive director if she had a recommendation on how we should approach this particular issue based upon your insight.
Yeah, I think my recommendation is what's laid out in the item. I feel personally most comfortable with us sticking to the numbers that we presented previously, with the understanding that they're not fundamentally wrong. And so, but I do think there are some costs that we very reasonably could not have known at that time. And those have to do with some things I know, Sarah, that you're familiar with, having to do with our insurance premiums and carrier issues. And then that's also coming up on the healthcare side. So, you know, what I wouldn't feel comfortable with is correcting an error that we made in that August submission. I think we don't have that kind of leeway, frankly, but things that we could not have reasonably foreseen, I think it's responsible to bring those forward.
Mr. Tony,
I think it's important for a budget to reflect as closely as we can what we think the actual needs are for the organization to accomplish its mission. And so, if there were oversights made in the August that we now have identified, I think it's fine to correct it. I think we're obligated to correct it, in fact, if there was an oversight. Okay, I don't know that it was an error, but oversights. I also, one of the issues was why we had to change the budget. One of the major budget drivers of the change last year was because we had projected salaries, which is the number one cost, right? 90% of the cost in the general fund is salaries. We had projected a 15% vacancy rate. And it turned out that the vacancy rate was actually closer to 7 or 8%. Well, that's a huge difference. Now, I don't think any agency can operate on a 15% vacancy rate sustainably. And so I think that was a learning experience. I view that as a learning experience. And so I would want to look very closely at, thinking about what would it mean to submit a budget at full staffing. Here's what the cost of full staffing looks like. Here's what the cost of our healthcare looks like. Part of addressing, I believe, the structural deficits that we have found ourselves in over the past years that I've been involved, I think has to do with more realistic projections of our budget. And so I do not feel that we should be tied in any way to a projection for a 2024 year that was presented in August of the previous year. So I would rather not use that as the starting point. I would rather use as the starting point a realistic projection of what our needs actually are and what we actually think the expenses are going to be. That's my opinion.
other members of the committee with comments? Board Member Good?
Having had the benefit and wisdom of the executive director, I'm fully aligned with her approach. On the healthcare front, businesses across the board are seeing massive increases this fall. That's unforeseeable. And on the insurance premiums, that's certainly true as well. So I endorse the approach that our executive director has recommended.
Other comments? From my vantage point, Leah, were you getting ready to say something? You're on mute.
Just that we'll take this feedback in and work with you as the chair, because I do think we'll need to have a special finance committee meeting where we spend time really looking at what staff has come up with. And to your point, Mark, I just want to assure you that those August numbers do reflect actual and reasonable vacancy rate, not the 15%. So that has been adjusted.
I was just going to say that, time and circumstances change things, and time and circumstance have changed, not only aspects and sort of inputs into our budget, but if you look at the state budget as well, these are forecasts, and the forecasts as it relates to the state budget have changed dramatically from what they were anticipating when the budget was put together earlier this year. So I too am sort of lean towards let's be as realistic and as forthcoming as we need to be about what has changed, because I think the case that's made, or the details that are around that, I think speak for themselves. I don't think it's anything that anybody is attempting to try to not be transparent about. Things, the time and circumstances have changed a few things, and so I look forward to having additional discussions about this, because I think it's going to be very, very important for us not only to build a budget that's reflective of what it is that the bar is being asked to deliver for the people of California, but also I think it'll be very important for us from a baseline and sort of a foundational sort of standpoint for our April report, as well as for our fee structure going forward. And so, I appreciate the comments of the members of the Finance Committee, and I think that I think we'll probably, if you feel and other members of the staff feel like you've gotten good direction, I think I'm comfortable with where it is that where this discussion has led us. Okay. So I think is the action here just to adopt the spending authority? Is that all that we need to do?
Approve the spending authority.
Yes. And approve the spending authority. And so, Tina, will you put the resolution up? I'll make sure committee members have a chance to take a look at it. And if I could get a motion to move the resolution.
So moved.
Need a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Moved by Mr. Tony, second by Board Member Good. Tina, can I get you to call the roll, please?
Buenaventura? Good.
Aye.
Huser?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Trejo?
I must recuse myself.
Sowell?
I'm an aye.
4 ayes, 0 nays. The motion passes.
All righty. I think we have just one more item on the agenda for the Finance Committee meeting, and that's the delegation of authority to request the California Employee Retirement Benefits Trust Fund reimbursements from that fund. And I think, Justin, this is you and Coco again.
Yeah, it's Coco.
It's Coco.
Hi. This request is for the delegation of authority for the state bar's CERP account with CalPERS. CERP is a pre-funding employer retirement benefit trust account. The state bar has never requested any disbursement from the account or the plan in the past. So the delegation of authority form was requested by the CalPERS to provide up to 3 positions who can request disbursement from the plan on behalf of the state bar. The form from CalPERS is also in the agenda. We are requesting the committee to recommend to the board to have the addition of 3 positions, including the chief financial officer, controller, and the executive director, to be able to request a disbursement from the plan when needed. So for any request over $10,000, it will require 2 signatories. So the state bar is not planning on requesting any disbursement or reimbursement of expenses at this moment, but it's best to have this document on file for any needs arise in the future. So are there any questions about this request?
I just wanted to clarify, Coco, we have talked about requesting a disbursement. This was specifically in related to our 2024 projected deficit. And when we did not know if we were going to sell the building. And so one measure we might take as a way to adjust our budget deficit was to do this withdrawal. And I think the Finance Committee chairs indicated that the committee might consider whether or not, even though now we have sold the building, hooray, we might consider doing some of these one-time measures as a way to address one-time additional costs that we have. So just wanted to clarify, not sure it's totally off
Yeah,
the table.
sorry, I really meant like in 2023, we are not like planning on doing any reimbursement.
Okay.
Other questions from committee members? So just to be clear, in my own mind, this just establishes the signatories in case we were to request reimbursement. But if we were to request reimbursement before any of that would occur, that item would come back before this committee and come back before the be a part of a discussion of the full board. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, very good. With that and seeing no questions, Teeny, do you mind putting the resolution up? Just want to make sure members of the committee have a chance to look at the resolution. And can I get a motion to move the resolution, please?
So moved.
I need a second. I can second. So moved by Mr. Tony, second by board member by me. And Tina, can I get you to call the roll?
Buenaventura. Good.
Aye.
Huser.
Aye.
Tony.
Aye.
Trejo.
Aye.
Sewell.
I'm an aye.
5 ayes, 0 nays. The motion passes.
Very good. I think that concludes the work of the Finance Committee for today. But Leah, if I could get you just to speak really quickly to the need potentially for a special meeting of the Finance Committee and the timing of when that might occur, just because I know it might occur during this holiday, around the holiday period, correct?
Yeah, I'm a little reluctant to say, and I don't know, Justin, if you want to weigh in, because our CFO is on vacation. And I don't want to force a timeline on her when she's out. But I think we need to get a draft budget to you all, certainly reflecting some of the policy discussion we've had here prior to the January board meeting. So I'm thinking it would actually happen in early January, not late December, but that's what I'm thinking right now. So I don't know, Justin, if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, that would be closer to the timeline sometime in January.
Okay, very good.
We'll poll the members and get some time together for that.
Very good. With that, I think we're adjourned and
back on time. Good job.
Yeah. And we'll turn it over to the audit committee.
And for those who are going to be on the audit committee, we're going to take a 5-minute break and start at 11:05. Okay, some of us been going straight since 9 o'clock.